Hello and welcome to another video lecture. So in this video, I'll talk about the next unit, which is the prototyping. So let's proceed on the main objectives of this lecture. So here, I'll be defining on what is prototyping and what a prototype is. So here we have different types of prototyping, from high to low fidelity prototyping, and then the other types of prototyping like your paper and then digital. Then last topic we'll discuss is the importance of prototyping. So the importance when it comes on application development. Okay, so let's start on defining what is prototyping. We can say that prototyping, so this is an experimental process where design teams implement ideas into tangible forms from paper to digital. So when we say experimental process, meaning the designer starts to create your interface, diba? Ang screens ang inyo ng application. So, meaning tangible forms, most likely these types of the prototype are going to be interactable. So meaning pwede nakamuka, interact. So amo ng end product yan. Then experimental, meaning upon the first na version sa prototype, tumangita na sila sang feedback from the potential users for changes or naman da nga fonts or styles or themes or flows ang gusto nila nga ma-implement sa inyo nga application. So teams build prototypes of varying degrees of fidelity to capture design concepts and test on users. So later on we'll know what are these types of degrees of fidelity. So with prototypes, we can refine and validate the designs so that your application when released is okay siya sa inyo nga customers or users or clients. So muna si prototyping, so way ni siya, this is a process, while the objective is to create a prototype. So the objective of prototyping is to create a prototype. You can say that a prototype is a simulation or sample version of a final product. So meaning, so like similar ni siya as your final product, but not your this is not the program na mismo. So muna ang simulation yan so the users can get feedback from this prototype. Then so i-revise na nila ang prototype, and then so on and so forth hasta nga maging okay na siya. Now, ang goal sang prototype, sang prototype is to test and validate ideas before sharing them with stakeholders and eventually passing the final designs to engineering teams for development. So as well as the software developers or your engineering team, so mag-base na sila sang mag-code sila sa application based sa prototype nga ginobra sang design team. Ano mo na ang purpose niya sang prototype kit is to get feedback from the users. We can say that the prototypes are essential siya for identifying and solving user pain points with participants during usability testing. So when we say user pain points, so these are the components or things or spots in your application, diba? That the users find hard to understand or to navigate or nabudlayan na sila mag-interact. So in a way, si prototype, mas patya na, ma-determine na mabudlayan di si user nga mag-navigate to a specific function, makuha na nila ang feedback, and then they can improve that flow, they improve that current design and implement it on the next version sang prototype. So testing prototypes with end users or your clients enables the design teams to visualize and optimize the user experience during the design process. So we can say that the engineering or the development itself is expensive, and making changes to a final product is often not as straightforward as teams anticipated. So, if ang changes nga na gina-implement na during the coding phase or the development phase, so that is very expensive. So this idea has been to introduce ko naman in the previous lectures. Right? When it comes sa pag-update ng designs, most likely dapat ubra na siya in your design phase pa lang. So not on your development phase. So finding and fixing errors during the design process is critical. So here we have 4 main qualities of prototypes. First is we have your representation. So the representation of a prototype, either on paper, on mobile, or HTML and desktop. Next is your precision. So when we say precision, the amount of detail. This refers to the fidelity of the prototype, meaning as the level of detail. So we can say that it's either low fidelity or high fidelity. Next is your interactivity. So this means, or this refers to the functionality open to the user. So meaning ang functions nga ma-access or magamit ng user. Or ang level of the functionality or functions nga ma-access na user. So your prototype can either be fully functional, so meaning all of your functions are available to the user. So depende man na sa type sang inyong application, partially functional or view only. So for view only, so lantaw niya lang na ang mga components nga ara dira sa inyong screens. The next or the last quality is the evolution. So this refers to the life cycle of the prototype. So yung life cycle, so, diba? So initial design, initial feedback, and then redesign, revision, and then ngayat naman sa feedback. So some are built quickly, tested, thrown away, and then replaced with an improved version. So this is known as rapid prototyping. So with the term for rapid prototyping, rapid meaning dasig lang or quickly nga ma-produce. So others may be created and improved upon, ultimately evolving into the final product. So if testing a prototype produces new insights about how the end users will interact with your product, so then it's worth taking the time to gather feedback and iterate. So whether ano man na siya nga type sang prototype. So paper, low fidelity, high fidelity, HTML, digital. So important gana siya nga kung makahatag siya sang feedback, especially critical na feedback that will improve the flow of your application. So worth it na siya nga spend some time on creating your prototype and then asking for feedback. So here I have a small table of how would you, imagine creating an application, so with or without a application prototype. So here on the left side is without a prototype, and then the right side is your kung may ara tasang a prototype. So first is the look from another perspectives, meaning when designing, so other perspectives, meaning other decisions or other mananga steps or other mananga ways of executing your function. So in your imagination, the idea may look perfect, but it is hard to notice any drawbacks when there is nothing to look at. Kung ara lang sa imagination mo, so most likely siya. That idea is okay say mo, na-imagine mo man nga wala sang flaws, but when implementing it, may gali isang flaws nga present. So within a prototype, so taking a look from this side allows you to be more critical and discover gaps or discrepancies of the idea. So you can find some flaws, in your initial idea and then improve ma-improve nyo. This can be improved at the prototyping stage. The next is we have experiment with different solutions. So when moving from idea state to development, experiments may be too risky, expensive, and time-consuming. So kung ma-experiment ka lang sa different solutions on the development na, so that will be expensive. So doon nagamba ka lang nga, kung nag-design ka lang gamit ang code, so that is more, mas damo pa na nga time ang ma-consume. Kay when it comes to development, so i-code mo pa na siya, di ba? Mag-design ka pa na, and then if island mo, so either you have to scrap that code or you have to implement some changes. So the changes can be minor or major. So depende sa inyo nga design. So with an app prototype, so you can make instant changes in a web app prototype without any risk. These changes don't affect the budget, but help you choose the best solution for development. So in here, kung may prototype, so ang changes nasa design na phase, sa prototyping na phase. So later on, kung perfect na yung mga prototype, i-carry on lang sa development. So here, we'll start on discussing the different types of prototypes. So here, we'll discuss yung low and high fidelity, so based on the level of detail. So a low fidelity prototype does not look like very much like the final product, nor that is provide the same functionality. Diba? So ang prototype, this type of prototype, so very simple na siya and wala siya ga-represent sang ng functions nga present sa inyong application. So most likely, this represents the concept of your app. So it may use very different materials such as paper and cardboard rather than electronic screens, diba, or metal. So like so di ka mo ma-expect nga the details are found in a low fidelity na prototype. So low fidelity prototypes are useful because they tend to be simple, cheap, and quick to produce. Diba? So kung malanda ang basic concepts malanda ang draw nyo, so this also means that they are simple, cheap, and quick to modify as well. So quick to produce and then quick to modify. So that they support the exploration of alternative designs and ideas. So when you're on the designing phase pa lang, so ano ba na ang proper na ideas, proper concepts, so you can use or utilize low fidelity na prototype. So this is particularly important in the early stages of development. So during the conceptual design, for example, because prototypes that are used for exploring ideas should be flexible and encourages exploration and modification. So, kay do basic ang foundation pa lang, di ba? Foundation pa lang ang gina-try nyo build up. Mas better na if you explore on alternative options. So low fidelity prototypes are not meant to be kept and integrated into the final product. So more likely, do initial concepts na isa. But as we go on, so from low fidelity, sumamat-amat na siya, evolve into a high fidelity. So these are your examples sang low fidelity to not really this type of prototype, so does not really give a high level of detail, diba? So low level of detail, when you manotice nyo, nga may aral siya sa sang basic nga components sa inyong application. Your app bar, your photo navigation bar, your content pandiri, yung placement ng images. So, may mga slider man ni siya, ang placement sa mga text, ang sa buttons, etc. So, mula na siyang placement lang. So, wala pa siya implement sa other levels of detail like your color, your theme, and then ang content pa nga ma-appear, diba? So, blank lang siya mostly. And then, black and white, diba? Matawagan siya nga simple. So, next type of prototype is the high fidelity. So, when you say high fidelity, so this looks like the final product, and usually provides more functionality than a low fidelity prototype. So meaning, ang level of detail dire is too similar na in your final product. So there is a continuum between low and high fidelity products and prototypes used in the wild, for example. So we will have enough fidelity to be able to answer the design questions and to learn about the interaction or technological constraints or contextual factors. So si high fidelity prototypes naman can be developed by modifying and integrating existing components, so both hardware and software, which are widely available through various developer kits and open source software, for example. So, pwede ito na maobra siya, no? So, with the tools available nila, so we can produce high fidelity na prototypes. So, these are example na siya sa prototype. So, ma-notice nyo, so very similar. So, at a glance, so we can say that this is a working na application na, but in our case, this is just a prototype. So, a high level or high fidelity na prototype. Okay. So here, we can see ang stages on creating a prototype. So here, the basic pa na siya. So mambat ang this is like a low level, a low fidelity na prototype. So sketches pa lang na siya, placement sa inyong images, placement sa ano. And then, the concept pa na siya. And then, mapusin naman sa another na low level na, low fidelity na prototype. But gamat-amat na siya may details. For example, in this one, ang cards dire wala sang unod. But in the middle, so may hara siya sang text and then sang image. So do may amat-amat na matamat na increase ang detail. So for the middle part, this is a type of wireframe na siya. So wireframe is a type of low fidelity na wireframe. So we will discuss that later. Then the last one is the high fidelity na prototype. As you can see, so mayroon na sang colors, mayroon na sang logos, sang pictures, ang proper buttons, themes, styles. So muna siya common evolution when it comes on creating a prototype. So gamat-amat increase ang level of details. So ang fidelity sa inyong prototype. So this is another example na siya. Evolving from a low fidelity. So this is considered na siya as low fidelity. This is also a low fidelity. This one is a high fidelity na siya. Okay, so next, we will discuss ang different types of prototyping based na siya sa kung diin na siya ging obra ang prototype nyo. So first, we have your paper prototyping. So as the name suggests, siya? Ang ging obra or ging implement ang prototype in a paper. And si paper prototyping works best during the early design stages where the teams of the designers collaborate to explore many concepts fast. So, gina-explore nila ang different concepts, different ideas nga pwede implement. So, team members sketch, diba? Mayroon yung keyword nga sketch ideas by hand using simple lines, shapes, and text. The emphasis is on exploring a lot of the ideas and speed, so not aesthetics. Muning focus siya. So ideas, exploring different ideas nga pwede implement sa inyong application. Then exploring these ideas very quickly. So the designers lay pieces of paper screens on the floor, table, or pin to a board to simulate user flows. So a common practice for testing these prototypes is to have one person play the product, switching the sketches according to how the user behaves. So most likely, so ginasimulate yan ang user flow by the arrangement of your or by the arrangement of the paper prototypes on sketches kung paano siya naging arrange within the paper, and then may explain dira. And most of the time, si paper prototypes, so consider na siya as a low fidelity na prototyping. So, little details na. So, this is an example siya sang paper prototype. So, as you can see, ito, so, may harap sang do skeleton, di ba? So, or frame sang, ano, sang, ang yung mobile device within that, so, may harap ka mo sang, ano, to ang concept nga screen, or concept nga user interface. So, this is a low visual and low functional paper prototype. So, meaning low functional, so you cannot, so hindi pa ma-explore ni ang, or simple, very basic lang functions ang pwede ma-explore din. Okay, so we will discuss the advantages and disadvantages of paper prototypes on the next part of the video. So thank you for watching and see you on the next one.